Thank you so much for coming for a wonderful conversation about a fabulous conversation to have together, and that is about our well-being. We oftentimes think about when we start talking about mental health, it's like, oh gosh, that's a heavy topic, and it doesn't need to be. And Chicago Sky and the Net and others have really taught us that we can come together and have a very optimistic conversation about our well-being and the well-being of those around us. So I am Dr. Michele Nealon. I'm president of the Chicago School. And with us today are colleagues and board members and students and friends of ours. And also I found out we've got gorgeous daughters of people that are of a person that's up here on the panel. I just love it. Go girl power, right? I know you're very proud of your mom. And a great, great, great pleasure to introduce these three ladies beside me. And I'm actually going to have them introduce themselves and tell you what they do and how they're affiliated with Chicago Sky.
Yes. Hi, my name is Delores Brown. I am part of Alkeme Health. We are a Black mental wellness and mental health care provider. I am the Vice President of Operations and People Experience at Alkeme Health.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Paviella Foster, Dr. P. I go by she, her, everything respectful pronouns, and I am the VP of Programs for NAMI Chicago, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, where we work every single day to destigmatize mental health.
Hi, my name is Patrice Whitfield. I'm the Director of Mental Health and Performance here for the Chicago Sky. And I'll pass it to Rebekah.
Hi, I'm Rebekah Gardner. I'm a player here at Chicago Sky and mental health advocate.
You really are. I'm going to start off by throwing a couple of numbers at you. They're boring, but they're important for us to know. Right now in the United States, less than 1 in 5 adults has a mental health condition. That's a lot of people. If you were to think about going through and asking every 5th person to stand up, that's a lot of us. And I say us. I was telling Rebekah, I am so inspired by something that's up on the Net website that she says, and that is that we're better when we're all together, even on a bad day, right? So I use the word us when we're having this conversation. 1 in 6 children between the ages of 10 and 17 in the United States has a mental health condition. Suicide is now the 2nd leading cause of death in the United States for children ages 10 through 14. Less than 50% of people that need mental health treatment actually can get it or have come forward or have access to it. Right? That's a pretty heavy topic. And then you meet organizations like Alkeme and Chicago Sky, and you get online, which I would encourage you to do, and look at the Net, and you get inspired by the conversations that are out there about women athletes and what women are coming together to do. Ambassadors like Rebekah, who is letting us know we can have productive, positive conversations about mental health. And these 3 women are here to help me tell you that story. So the first question that I have is actually going to go to Dr. Foster. And by the way, NAMI, and I see that cameras are rolling, NAMI is the bomb. All the young people, aren't you impressed? I can say that it's the bomb. It is the bomb, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. For anybody who has any question, big or small, about mental health, it's at the Chicago School, we go to the NAMI websites when we're looking for the most updated data and recommendations. So help me out. Tell this group, is it always been an issue? Is there something new that's going on? And also, why are we all suddenly talking about mental health?
Well, it's definitely nothing new. It has been for so long something that has been a stigma that folks have been afraid to talk about, scared to discuss, because the first thing that folks think, if I identify and say that I live, and I mean live through a mental illness, that means that probably somebody's going to call me crazy. They're going to think I'm weird. They're going to think I'm off, right? And who wants to walk around like that? Who wants to have that label on them every single day? So it's definitely not something that just came up. But there's more discussions about it. There are more people that are talking about it, especially with children and young people on a day-to-day basis, because we do care about our mental fitness, right? We talk about mental wellness and what that means in every area of our lives and the communities that we serve. When we go to schools, when we show up for work, how well are we? And that's important, especially after the pandemic, when we learned that community was important, when we took us away out of spaces where we couldn't talk to people and communicate with people, where we had masks, so people didn't understand if we were smiling or if we were frowning, if we were okay, if we weren't okay. And all of that is now extremely important for us to really push forward how people are feeling and what they are going through on a day-to-day basis.
I love that in there you put a reference to young people. I love that because every person in this room, regardless of your age, but especially our young people and our young women in the room, we really need to be open and honest about how well we are doing or not. Stigma is really about any inaccuracy or misinformation that's pushed out there. And there can be a public stigma, but there can be a personal stigma as well, that we're inside of ourselves, that we are beating ourselves up as well as institutional stigma, when systems are actually lobbied against pushing out anything other than accurate information. So we're left feeling a little bit afraid or worried that people won't understand us. So please do listen to what Dr. Foster said. It's okay. It's okay for us to stand up and really be very open and talk about this. Patrice, I want to ask you, I was reading as I was getting ready for this panel that 35% of elite athletes are really struggling with things such as burnout, issues with eating, stress, anxiety. Can you tell us why athletes are especially vulnerable, and really fine-tuning on why women athletes, what's the vulnerability there, the extra pressures they're facing?
If you think about what it takes to be an athlete, there's a lot of pressure already to perform. So you're dealing with people, women who are wanting to be at their best. And sometimes when you're trying to be at your best, there's pressure that you put on yourself. There's pressure that maybe comes from your family, from your coaches, from your friends, from fans. And so just that additional pressure can be really hard on athletes. And also, if you don't know an athlete's schedule, it's very busy. And so they don't often have times to practice those coping patterns that would help them be at their best as well, because they're focusing so much on their performance, their athletic performance.
Thank you. Rebekah, can you resonate with that?
I definitely can. I would say over the years, I've learned that physical is important in sports, but in basketball, but also mental is just as important, if not more important. Like I know you mentioned burnout, and last year was my first year in the WNBA and playing year round. And about halfway through, I was very burnt out to the point where I was just ready to stop. But I had a chance to talk to Patrice, and she gave me some coping mechanisms like journaling, routine, stuff like that. And by doing those things, it helped me stay fresh. But definitely, if you're not right mentally, you're not going to perform to your best physically on the court. So it's important to have your mind right.
Rebekah, you just did something that's so important, again, for every one of us to learn from. And you admitted openly, casually, that you struggled with burnout. I want everybody to give her a round of applause for saying that. When really and truly, when leaders and role models like you, Rebekah, stand up and you share publicly, privately with others that, yes, I struggle with this as well, you truly do empower everybody around to say, oh, she can say it, I can absolutely say it as well. So congratulations for saying that. Thank you for helping us all with feeling so open to say those things. Let me ask you, you said that you went to Patrice. Do you have any advice for how do you pick a person that is trustworthy enough to go to and say, listen, this is what I'm dealing with inside?
Well, I would say, first of all, Patrice, she was very open to me to come to her. And I think as you're going through your day, your week, you come across different people, and me personally, I try to go, like, if someone's very positive with me or very genuine, things like that. Those are the things I look for to go to a person. And someone who's also kind of a listening ear. Sometimes you don't always want to hear a solution. You just need someone to talk to. So someone who's not quick to speak, but quick to listen. And Patrice was definitely someone who offered that to me. And I think, yeah, just going throughout your day, like, you'll run into those type of people. And like what I did, I personally took note of that. And I felt she made me feel comfortable to go to her. So thank you.
One of the things that I, again, really applaud Chicago Sky and the net, they've really begun to talk about building your own bench strength. I read something about a community that I hadn't thought about before, and that is that we oftentimes think of community as our family and friends. Community is also a shared feeling or a shared experience. Patrice, as the role that you have for the Chicago Sky, how have you facilitated that feeling of community and giving permission to build your bench strength to ensure your wellness? Any tips for us? Anything you did that really stands out that says this is what I would recommend to other organizations?
The W and a lot of professional teams are special in that we're getting a lot of players from around the world. So we're not just getting people from Illinois or Chicago, we're getting players from Australia and California. And so I think it's really important when we first get together to really start to learn more about each other, learn about where we're coming from, learn about cultures. So asking the questions and taking time, as Rebekah was saying, to listen. So not always talking X's and O's, but also spending time to just sit down and be like, how's your day going? Do you have any siblings? What was college like for you? So really taking the time to not just jump straight into business, but to actually get to know the people that you're working with. We're with each other every single day.
Yep. Community is feeling, as well as the people around us. And on community, I want to talk with both Delores and Dr. Foster for a minute. Again, preparing for this panel, I got in and read everything I could about Alkeme, and I am so inspired. I really want you to tell this group of people about Alkeme and what you stand for, what you have done, what you continue to do every day for the Black community, and how you've built that sense of community for the Black community when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, actually, one of the reasons that I joined Alkeme was because of the community aspect. I too went through an incredible, I wouldn't call it season, but like a couple of years of burnout and didn't realize that I was burnt out, especially because some of the symptoms were celebrated. It was like, oh, she's doing everything and she's thinking of everything and she's pulling it together. But in reality, I was spending about 18, 19, 20 hours a day, maybe sleeping 1.5 or 2 hours. But then I was getting celebrated at work. So I took about a year off and started working with Alkeme because we focused on the Black community. Being a Black woman who was a solo parent, who's gone through her own trials and tribulations, finding someone who, let's say, a community that was not culturally competent was very difficult. I was very grateful to go through what I started going through in Oakland. So there was more of that community base there. But Alkeme and Ryan Mundy, who's the CEO, was very forward about, hey, it is for us. We are a community of people. We are coming together. It's not because, oh, there's a mental health issue. It's because we're going for our mental health. We're working towards our mental health wellness. It's not just a one-off thing. It's not because you need medication. And if you do, that's also okay. But Alkeme has really done a lot of work and continues to do a lot of work to bring that community together. We've pulled together over 60,000 people who really just come together to learn about what does mental health mean? What does having a culturally competent therapist mean? What does it mean to grieve? Is grief always bad? All these things that we have such a stigma about, especially in the Black community. I would say Alkeme has and will continue to do better and do more, but work to break that stigma so that someone can reach out. We may not always be the solution, and we're not here to be the only solution, but we want to be one of those bridges, like to connect you. Hey, if you see this on our site or you see one of us speaking about it, maybe you can go speak to somebody else, and then you kind of start to build your own community.
So I always love talking about things that very few other people will talk about. So I'm delighted to have this conversation about in the Black community, and really leaders, community leaders like you that are raising awareness in this regard. What best advice do you have to help people understand, why is this an issue? Why should we care? Why do we need to spend time on raising all of our communities up? Anybody that is going to listen here tonight or watch these clips of this video later on, what do we need to be talking about? How do we need to jump in there? Why and how? And I'm going to ask the same question of you, Dr. Foster, and how NAMI is addressing this same issue.
One of the biggest issues that we run across is that feeling of being alone. When you're starting to go through anything, some people, especially myself, I isolate. I actually moved countries a few times. I left. Went to China, Turkey, like I was gone, and then moved states. And I isolated, and I felt, hey, if I can get through this and get better away from everybody, I can come back a better person. And that ended up being to my own detriment. But because we don't talk about it, especially in the Black community, oh, if you're going through something, if you're feeling depressed, it's like, oh, well, you should have discipline to get through it, versus like, hey, let's really nurture and see what the actual issue is. So I think one of the things that Alkeme and NAMI and all the Sky, one thing I love that they're doing is bringing attention to it so that you know that you're not alone. Going through it alone is not the healthy option. Had some great experiences and have my beautiful daughters, but going through it alone is probably one of the biggest issues, and one of the things I would love to bring more attention to.
Yeah. As I love it, I really believe this to be my favorite new expression, Rebekah, that we're all better when we're together, even on the bad days. Dr. Foster, what do you have to add to what Delores has said?
Well, to build off of that, I think communication is definitely key. Folks in this room know if I start this sentence off, what happens in this house
stays in this house.
That has become something.
Yeah.
That has become something that has been detrimental to the Black community. What happens in this house stays in this house, which means everything that we have gone through and we have experienced, we just keep it in the household, right? And it teaches a lot of folks in the Black and Brown community, don't go talk about what you're going through. Don't talk about what you're feeling, and suppress. And then there's a response to that. And so that response ultimately could be detrimental to us, could be detrimental to the communities around us, right? To young people who are growing up and in those spaces. And so one of the things that NAMI is doing, we do have a helpline, right? And so 833-NAMI-SHY, we tell people to call that helpline to talk about that, to experience what it feels like 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single night, 365 days out of the year, to talk to anybody. And they're going to stay on the phone with you for as long as you need to, right? That is difficult and very, very hard to find. And so we want to always push that to communities that we know aren't talking about mental health, aren't talking about how do you be well every day, not just when you're going through something for, a couple minutes or so. And so that's some of the work that NAMI is doing, is trying to get into Black and Brown communities to truly support and destigmatize that it's okay to talk about what happens in the house so that we can build the communities around us.
Yeah, that's really important. Again, one of the most remarkable things that I read about Chicago Sky and the net is how it has it already is, and then it has remarkable potential to be a role model for how organizations, both internally and then together, build this bench strength of raising awareness, reducing stigma about mental health, and then doing exactly what you just said, changing our narrative to being a positive, constructive narrative. So we're talking about this just as we would about asthma or a broken arm or whatever. Then we'll know that we've made progress together. I mentioned earlier that stigma, so just to remind everyone, stigma is about when there's inaccurate information that's out there, misleading information, and it starts breeding fear and misunderstanding of others. And we've certainly seen a lot of that when it comes to talking about mental health. So there's the public stigma. We know that there's the institutional stigma. So any policies that are not in place that supports mental health awareness or wellness and so on, if the resources are not in place, that's all institutional stigma. But I want to ask the four of you about private stigma. So we oftentimes talk about stigma as if it's external to us, and it is. It's institutional. But what about private stigma? Any advice? And Rebekah, let's start with you. But any advice for people that are kind of stigmatizing themselves, that they're running narrative in their heads that is pulling themselves down rather than saying, where's my community? Where's my bench? Any advice for how you get past that own private beating yourself up?
Well, I would say that we need to continue to get the word out that, mental health is health. And I think if we look at it that way and continue to spread the word, people will become more comfortable with reaching out to someone they may need or not internalizing it. So yes, like spreading the word, getting it out there. Mental health is health.
Yeah, and again, Rebekah, thank you for being an ambassador for that and all that you do to spread that news. How about you, Patrice? Any advice for pushing past our own private stigma?
I'll speak a little bit about more from the athletic side as well, is that perfectionism is often seen in high-performing people, including athletes. And so they want to be perfect because when they're perfect, as Delores was saying, it's rewarded. It's congratulations, you get the raise, you won the game, you did everything at all costs. And so over time, we're thinking, I have to be perfect, I have to be perfect, I have to be perfect. And so it can be hard to admit that I dropped the ball here. I wasn't able to do this here. I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm feeling run down. It can be really hard to admit that when you're so used to being rewarded for doing things well. Some advice for people who have perfectionistic tendencies, who are high-performing people, is to be okay with not being perfect. Be okay with doing things at the best of your ability and letting that be okay. It doesn't have to look 100% perfect. We're not always going to win the game, even if we try our best, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's great advice. I've never met perfect, have you? It's not shown up in my life yet. How about you, Dr. Foster? What advice?
My advice would definitely be is to find power in your story and your voice. Those are two of the things that are the most powerful things that you own, right? Outside of your name, when you begin to speak, you elevate your own power, right? And telling your story allows other folks around you and people to trust in what you're saying, but also believe in what you are going through. Mm-hmm. And the more that we put more power to our voice and our story, the more people will join movements like this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Absolutely. Delores, I know they're so smart. This is good advice. I hope somebody's recording it or writing it down. It's great.
Thanks. To add on to what you were saying, the idea, or at least with myself, I think about what I would say to somebody else. If somebody were to come to me and you see kind of everything's in disarray in their house and they've been kind of isolated, I would never tell them like, oh man, you're horrible. So then why would I do that to myself? It took me a while, and actually took me having kids to be like, I would never say these things to them. So then why would I say it to myself? And then I also started to see it reflected either within my kids or some of the people that were reporting to me. If I was hard on myself for what was normal, I'm going to make mistakes. We're writing papers, and there's going to, regardless of spell check or whatever tools you have, there's going to be a mistake. Yeah. And to me, the perfection is not, oh, you have no mistakes. It's being able to see it like, oh, there's two spaces, or, oh, I completely misspelled this word, or this paragraph makes no sense, and being able to then pivot and fix it, whatever. But the biggest thing, like I said, was to kind of reflect on how would I speak to somebody else, and then if I'm feeling a little low, that day speak to myself as if I'm not myself, for lack of better words.
I bet you're very proud of your mom, you too, right? Very proud of your mom. She's a powerhouse up here. I have a question about social media. So we need another hour, and we only have another couple of minutes. But in those couple of minutes with social media, so we do hear a lot, especially for youngsters. We hear that there are a lot of bad rap about. See, I can say bomb and rap, and I'm not bad for a 56-year-old, right? She's now. Oh no, she gave me big pleasant eyes. That's good. But social media, we've heard about how anxiety and depression in young people has just risen and risen and risen the more that they've had a smartphone in their hand. What I'm not because there's so many positive things as well. when we think about building a community, do you see any of you, and any of you just please jump in, any opportunities for social media to play a really positive role here in getting messages about wellness and reduce stigma out there? I see Dr. Foster's ready to go. What's the positive news here?
Absolutely. I mean, so social media has gotten so many different bad reps, but it's a digital community. It has become such a community for young people, and having young people to be able to connect with folks. If I am afraid to talk to you in the classroom, but I see your picture online, and I have the confidence and the boldness to be able to talk to you through social media, and you talk back to me, I am now building my community through this digital platform. And that may take away from anxiety. That may take away from depression. I may be feeling suicidal that day. Whatever that thing is in that moment, I have now diminished that simply because I found confidence behind a computer screen or behind my phone to be able to feel confident to say, you know what, I have now a new friend, or I have a community of folks who trust me, and they don't have to look at me day to day, right? Or I feel some type of way if I'm sitting next to you. And so there are positives in building your community through social media. And sometimes we focus on the negative, but there's so many positives.
And we did see that during the pandemic, right?
Absolutely.
Young people all over the globe connected in such a meaningful way through that. I love that, through the digital community. Any others? What do you see about the positives in there in terms of telling the story about mental wellness?
I'd say there's, like you said, there's a lot of positives. If you scroll through your timeline, you can see positive quotes and be inspired by different things that you see. I think the main thing is just to not compare yourself when you're on there. And by doing that, then you don't get into the mental health part negatively. So, yeah, just be intentional. Like if there's something that you see, maybe that triggers you, unfollow it. But like on my timeline, it's only stuff that I'd like to see. And if I don't want to see it, then unfollow, So, so yeah, just being intentional.
You really are a superstar, Rebekah. We love you. Patrice, any advice on the positives of social media?
I'd like to just rehash what Rebekah was saying, that like our theme here is build your bench. And so you do that in person of who you choose your friends are going to be, where you want to go to have a good time. Same on the digital community, is that you still want to build a good environment that's going to make you feel well. So if you're scrolling Instagram and you start to feel bad about yourself, if you start to feel anxious, if it feels like, oh, why don't I have this, or why don't I look like that, then you know you've spent too much time on it. So either you need to adjust what your timeline looks like, or maybe it's time to take a break. So just being aware of how it's impacting you in the moment. Other than that, I think it is a positive thing.
Yep.
Last word to you, Delores.
I think one of the beautiful things about social media and what Alkeme Health really, this is how we're able to be successful, is because we can connect people. We have people in South Africa and Thailand, and we had some people from Russia, and then Atlanta and New York. And we have all these different individuals that have their own journeys, and they all have met at one juncture at a workshop, or they've all read something on social media and they're all commenting. And to the point of building a bench, your bench is no longer just who's in your neighborhood or who's sitting here in the audience. Even though we're all amazing people, there's so many other people who have had similar parts of their journey. And without social media, we would not have had the opportunity to connect. So there's definitely a ton of positives. But the biggest thing, I think, is building that bench from more than just the pickings that are around you.
Yeah. Well, I have one last point for comment, but I'm going to take the lead. And as I'm talking, you guys can be thinking through your answers. And that is, look at those cameras down there rolling. A lot of people are going to see this recording. What final word do we all leave? So I'm going to leave a final word and then invite you to leave the final word on this regard. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have been for many years. I'm president of the Chicago School. We train now 1 in every 15 mental health professionals right here in Illinois. And I'm very proud to be having a conversation about mental health. We're all not that different from each other. And the more that we have the courage to talk about ourselves and our own struggles and embrace the struggles of others, that's why I really do take my hat off to Chicago Sky for beginning this bold conversation, and for having the net, and for engaging with organizations like NAMI and Alkeme. you're a pioneer, and I hope that many others will follow you. So let's go talk about mental health. Final words, Delores.
I'm grateful to see everybody here and to be able to have this conversation. As I mentioned, having gone through my own kind of trials and seeing friends and family go through their own things, to be here sitting and standing and being able to speak with everybody is huge. And then also to be part of a company like Alkeme, whose focus is really to build that community. You're not in it by yourself. There's something that you may have gone through that is, you can think there's no other way that somebody else has gone through it. I'm not going to promise, but very, very sure that there's somebody that can identify with a certain point or is willing to listen and learn. So being able to sit up here, and also proud to have this conversation. I cannot imagine having this maybe 5 years ago.
Right?
Not at all.
Dr. Foster?
Absolutely. I would definitely say that this is a proud moment to be able to talk about mental health and mental fitness in this capacity. And as we talk about building community and building your bench, one of the final things that I would say is, even when you have bench warmers, you go back to the bench and you pull them up with you. And you talk about what's the importance of having a community, and how we move forward is by talking to people next to us, around us, next door, in different countries, all of that. And that this is the start of that. And we don't have to finish that conversation, that it can keep going beyond today.
That is golden. Golden, girlfriend. Patrice?
I'm thankful to be a part of a sport organization that talks the talk and walks the walk. So we don't just do stuff like this where we have panels and have wonderful t-shirts, but we're actually doing the work behind the scenes through our partnerships, through our conversations with our athletes. So just thankful to be here with this guy. And my final word is that there's always strength and vulnerability. That a lot of times we feel that is weak, and it's awful to be upset or emotional or have feelings, but if there's actually wonderful strength in that. So I'm grateful for athletes like Rebekah that can say stuff like this and y'all to receive it.
Totally. Last word is yours, Rebekah.
So I'll speak from the athlete perspective. First of all, I'm very grateful that now we have these type of things available to us. I've been playing basketball for a while, and when I first started playing, we didn't have access to things like this. So it's great that it's available. And, there's going to be ups and downs throughout playing sports, but just know that there are people there to help. And even if you're not someone who needs help, I'd also say reach out to your friend, reach out to your teammate, and see how they're doing. And by doing that, by creating the community, building a bench, we'll all be better together.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to all four of you. Let's follow each other on social media and build our digital community together. And thank you all so much for being ambassadors with us. Thank you. Enjoy the game.